Good afternoon. I'm Louisa. I'm with the Transnational Institute. For those of you that don't know us, we are an international research and advocacy think tank based in Amsterdam. And within TNI, I'm working on the Public Alternatives Program, which focuses on research about democratic public ownership over basic public services. TNI has been working on public ownership over water since 2004, and in these past 18 years, we have encountered countless examples of the unsustainability and failure of water privatization and so-called public-private partnerships. However, at the same time, a global movement towards public water ownership has emerged over the past 15 years to safeguard access to water as a basic human right. My intervention today is centered around this development. So I will begin with touching upon some of the key issues and failures of privatized water. My second block focuses on the growing remunicipalization trend of the water sector and TNI's long work on this, before I conclude with some concrete examples of remunicipalizations and the impacts of public water ownership. Despite the heavy promotion of the privatization of water systems by international institutions such as the World Bank, IMF, and IFC, privatization of essential public services are failing all over the world. 63 projects alone of the IFC, which represent 28% of their total water investment in the past 20 years, have failed or are in difficulty. The failure rate for water and sewerage privatization more generally is even larger and has increased to 34% between 2010 and 2015. These public-private partnerships are failing to provide access to safe and affordable drinking water on multiple dimensions. Firstly, we are witnessing tariff hikes and soaring water bills that limit people's access to water and directly impact their human rights. At the same time, public-private partnerships are more costly than the provision of services through the public sector and do not deliver the desired cost reductions, efficiency increases, and improvement in infrastructure to supply the poor. Lastly, we have seen widespread chronic underinvestment into necessary water infrastructure and a reliance on additional public money to execute even basic maintenance and construction works, which drains public budgets while extracting privatized profits. However, if public operators then want to prematurely terminate contracts due to the poor quality of privatized water service provision, this can further add millions of dollars in compensation. So instead, it is better to avoid privatization in the first place. Despite the strong push for water privatization by international organizations and promoters of a neoliberal for-profit agenda, 90% of the water and sanitation provision globally remains in public hands. Within the EU, water has not experienced the same liberalization pressures as other basic goods and services, largely due to the EU's campaign for water as a human right, which started off as a citizens' campaign. However, where water services have been privatized, the continuous failures of water privatization have motivated hundreds of municipalities around the world to take back control over water infrastructure. These so-called remunicipalizations are also a key area of TNI's work, and TNI has been following the remunicipalization trend of the water sector from the start. So in 2004, TNI launched the Water Justice Project, and a year later, the Reclaiming Public Water Network was launched and has since grown to over 300 member organizations in 58 countries, which work to promote democratic public models for providing water to ensure safe and affordable access to water for all. TNI's research since has focused on diverse forms of public governance and instances of water remunicipalizations. These remunicipalizations mean that public bodies are taking back control over services which were previously privatized. Our research efforts have led to the development of a water tracker and a public database, and several publications, including the initial publication of the 180 case studies in 35 countries in 2014, and the follow-up publication, Our Public Water Future. Today, we record over 349 water remunicipalizations since 2000, which affect over 260 million people worldwide. Almost 200 of these remunicipalizations have happened within Europe, and France, which is the country with the longest history of water privatization that is home to the leading water multinationals, is actually at the forefront of remunicipalizing water services, with almost 120 cases happening in France. I've brought a prominent example from France to share with you, which is the water remunicipalization in Paris. So in 2008, Paris decided not to renew its contract with the private French water companies Suez and Veolia, which are the world's biggest water companies. They had been supplying Paris with water since 1985, but several audits revealed their excessive profits as water prices for residents continued to rise. So in 2008, the city council decided not to renew their contract and set up a public water utility, Eau de Paris, which by 2010 was in the first year of operations and realized 35 million in direct savings within the first year. As a result, the city decided to reduce water tariffs by 8% in 2011 and has remained the lowest tariff rates in the Greater Paris area ever since. The city also introduced a solidarity fund for low-income households, in which it has invested over 500,000 euros. They have further opened 30 public baths, showers, and laundries across the city to make sure that individuals without housing also have access to water. And the city also provides free drinking water through over 1,400 water fountains across the city. After the remunicipalization, an independent and city-supported citizens body, the Water Observatory, was set up, which connects water users and the public water company and creates space for exchange and debates. Moreover, to ensure democratic governance, the public company is governed by a diverse, democratically elected board made up of elected municipal officials, staff representatives, and representatives from NGOs that are advocating for water users. And this open governance approach further enables political and citizen oversight over public water in Paris. This remunicipalization shows that these structures provide real alternatives to public-private partnerships that allow local and national governments to provide democratic, inclusive, and sustainable water services and collaborate with other public and community-based actors such as citizen groups. A second example I want to share with you is the remunicipalization of water in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Buenos Aires granted a 30-year concession agreement to a subsidiary of Suez in 1993 for the management of water. And within the first years of private management, the city noticed that the private company was making excessive profits, although it failed to comply with its contract. At the same time, during the first 10 years of private management, urban residents saw their water bills increase by 88%. And when the debt crisis hit Argentina in 2002, the private company also decided to sue the Argentinian government for financial losses. So after years of unsuccessful negotiations, in 2007, water services were finally remunicipalized and a new public water company was created, which prioritized expanding access to water and investing into neglected infrastructure. To further expand access into low-income areas, the government also decided to engage in partnerships with workers' cooperatives that were used to connect over 700,000 people to water. The experience of Buenos Aires, Paris, and countless other municipalities to remunicipalize, or in 8 instances, even renationalize the water sector provide us with hard evidence of the benefits over public ownership and water governance. These results of remunicipalizations include, firstly, immediate direct savings for most municipalities. So as I mentioned, Paris saved 35 million in the first year of remunicipalization. Moreover, public bodies are able to offer more competitive rates by contracting local water service providers, which contributes to the local economy. In addition, public ownership increases investment in water systems as the public sector can reinvest revenues directly to improve the system without skimming profits for private stakeholders first. Public ownership also allows for a long-term vision for infrastructure and for improving water access for low-income households, for example, through social tariffs. And lastly, democratic governance also leads to greater accountability and transparency in the management of water. Despite the failures of water privatization all across the world in major cities such as Buenos Aires or Jakarta, privatization is still prescribed as a solution to provide access to safe water and improve public finances. However, privatization does not deliver on either one of these promises. Reclaiming control over water services once they have been privatized is possible, as hundreds of cases are showing us, but it can be costly and a lengthy journey. So instead, where national, regional, and local governments have ownership over the water sector, they must remain in control and avoid falling into the privatization trap. Instead of costly public-private partnerships, local authorities can form partnerships with other public operators and municipalities, such as public-public partnerships that also include workers and citizens to improve the management and ensure democratic control over public services. Finally, to take social and environmental action and to ensure access to water as a basic human right, water must remain and be returned to public hands where the right to water is valued more than private profits. For this, we have to continue to struggle for the deprivatization and democratization of water to reclaim and retain public ownership over our water. Thank you very much.